I'm Kevin Coleman with the Santa Post, and I'm speaking with Jeff Lehner,
Yep.
the Ross County Auditor.
That's right, yeah.
And you just had a discussion yesterday with the Ross County Commissioners over the tax budget.
We did, yes.
Now, the tax budget is required by the state legislature at the midpoint, at the summer, to sort of give a prediction for the final budget at the end of the year.
That's right, yeah. I think it's fair to say the commissioners are still trying to decide how they're going to address certain plans that they have. I think mostly related to capital improvements. They are planning, as of right now, a pretty significant restoration of the exterior of the courthouse. And I think in light of everything that's going on in the community and potentially what it means for the local economy, they're rethinking some of those things. You would probably want to talk to them for some specifics on that, but I know from my conversations with Commissioner Glass that what started last year as a conversation, as a comprehensive project, is kind of morphing into a piece-by-piece approach, which I welcome. I think that's a good idea. Because the price tag associated with the comprehensive project obviously was a big one.
And that would include the old jail too.
Yeah, I think that was part of it. They're in the planning phase right now where they're kind of identifying some of the work that would need to be done. A lot of it is what's needed in terms of repairs. And you see it like on the front, for example, there's some crumbling stone and block work on the front. I mean, that's an obvious example of something that would need to be repaired.
Yeah.
The rest of it, I think, would be more characterized as like cosmetic. And I think the commissioners are trying to figure out, okay, what's an immediate need versus what's something that we would like to do at some point. And of
But
course,
that's got a sizable price tag, I think, $5 million?
more than that, yeah. I mean, what they were talking about last year was a price tag of up to $8.5 million. So it's real money. And like I said, you want to talk to them for the specifics on that, but from my conversations, at least with Commissioner Glass, that's turned into, okay, we're going to look at this all at one time as part of a bundled comprehensive plan, to now it's okay, what makes sense to do kind of in phases or maybe in pieces. And so in terms of this tax budget, what they're kind of working through is what they want to commit to as a spending item for 2026, I think would be a fair way to characterize that.
Okay. But that was one of the big projects that they have, along with renovations to the service center, plus a different way to fund children's services.
Sorry, can we hit pause?
Yeah.
Okay.
So along with exterior renovations to the courthouse,
Yes.
the commissioners are also they're in the process of planning for renovations to the service center. They've also got concerns about funding children's services. And I think there was also mention of possibly piggyback sales tax factoring into all this.
Yes, so the commissioners have a lot on their plate right now. They're talking about the courthouse renovation, they're talking about renovations at the service center, they've got a project going on at the jail related to some upgraded security in the walls. They're talking about an airport expansion, I guess, of the runway. That's going to be grant funded, so that's not general fund money. But I think the point is that the commissioners have a lot on their plate right now.
More than usual?
Yeah, I would say way more than usual when you think about the last 20 years or so in Ross County. A lot of it has to do, there's a lot of maintenance on the courthouse specifically that at this point, it's fair to say, has been kind of neglected. And so there's some catch up to do in terms of capital improvements. The challenge is figuring out how they're going to pay for all these, because we're talking about a price tag in the millions of dollars. And so when you add it all up, and some of that has to do with state money coming in as grants, for example, the jail walls, that's grant funded by the state. What's going on at the airport is federal grant money that comes in from the Federal Aviation Administration. So it's not all local property tax or sales tax revenue. But the point is that it's a lot of projects that are taking place at one time. Another one, for example, is they're looking at a sewer line installment up 104. That's going to be federal ARPA money. Great example. It's a huge project.
So some pass-throughs if they can get grants, but still handling a lot of money.
That's it. So the grants have already been secured. We've had the ARPA money in our possession for a few years now for the sewer line up 104. as I said, the jail project, that money from the state has already been secured. They've already got the federal money secured for the airport. So it's not a matter of saying, okay, we hope to get this money. The money is there. I think the point is that these are several things going on all at one time, and that's not been the case in Ross County in the past. But then you look at what is being funded by local money, and that's the courthouse, for example, and the service center. And so where the piggyback tax came into play there is Ross County collects an additional 0.5% tax on sales. That's permissive, and we've done that for 40 plus years now in Ross County, and so that's a 0.5% that's tacked on to the initial 5 3/4 from the state, and then the extra 1% that's statutory to counties. And so it's Commissioner Everson specifically who's been talking about that, is that what he would like to do is to dedicate, he mentioned in the meeting the other day, 20% of that amount annually specifically to capital improvements, which is doable. But I think the point there is that it would be a change from Ross County's previous status quo. And the point I'm trying to make to the commissioners, and Commissioner Glass and I spoke at length about this yesterday afternoon, is that, okay, if you want to establish that as a new status quo, you got to find a pay for, you know? And so that means that unless we're just talking about additional new spending that's on top of our current situation, which I don't think is wise, the point is that you've got to find offsets elsewhere. And so that's going to mean, hopefully, in my opinion, and I think, well, I'll let them speak for themselves, but I think the idea is to maintain our spending level in a way that we're not blowing out the budget, but also addressing these needed priorities. So there may be a change this year, and then going forward in some of the priorities here in Ross County, I think it'd be fair to say.
So they have a lot of money that is or will be going out, plus they're thinking factoring some of the money that they get in, like with the piggyback tax.
Yeah, so the piggyback tax specifically, last year I think it generated around 6.8 million. And so
also some of that has been promised back to the townships, which weren't getting it for like 20 years, 15 years.
That's right, yeah. And that, I think you did some reporting on that earlier this year. And so what they did with part of that money, they reestablished a relationship between the county and the township, specifically for township road construction and maintenance. And so
so they've already figured that out, but the part that they're still getting, they want to reformulate it with that 20%.
Yes, yeah. And so for many years now in Ross County, that money has just kind of come into the general fund and been available for the commissioners' appropriations. But when you start to designate specific revenue streams to specific sources, what you're doing is saying, okay, that's no longer part of the general mix of what the county has available to spend. And so on the one hand, you're providing for a new opportunity, which is good depending on what your priorities are. But on the other side of it, it means that you're going to have to make some changes elsewhere to accommodate for it. Otherwise, it's just new spending, you know? And I think that's kind of what they're grappling with right now, is how to address that. We've spoken, you and I, and I've had this conversation with many people in the community over the last few years, is that Ross County has built a pretty significant general fund carryover in recent years. We carried around close to $20 million into 2026, or into 2025 from 2024. It was 19.6 million. That's the highest it's been, at least as far back as I've seen. 5 years ago, for example, the carryover was a little over $10 million. So we're talking about a carryover that has doubled over the last 5 years. It provided for a cut in the county's general fund property tax this year, and that was good. And everybody knows I want to go further on that. And if we get the opportunity, we're going to do that via the Budget Commission. But as of right now, conservatively, we're looking at another $18 to $19 million carryover into 2026. And so that carryover remains. And so the conversation that's taken place among the commissioners themselves upstairs and between me and the commissioners is, okay, you know, there are many initiatives on the table that seem to be worthwhile, seem to be good ideas, in some cases seem to be needed, but we can't forget about the taxpayer, you know. And so my hope is that they will agree that the idea should not be spend all this money that we have. We've got to remember where it comes from, in my opinion, and that's the case that I'm making to them when I'm part of those conversations.
So we're talking about the workshop yesterday with you and the commissioners on the tax budget.
Yes.
The state's tax budget. So you handle the money, you process it, and the commissioners decide how it's spent.
Yes, so the commissioners are the appropriators, and so the money that comes in, the commissioners decide where it's going to go and for what purposes, stuff like that. The treasurer manages the money in terms of how it's invested. So while it's held with us, the treasurer decides how it's invested and how we're growing it on his side.
And he receives it too?
Well, it's actually all received by the treasurer. And so my role in that, I'm the fiscal officer, so I process payments. I'm there for oversight. I'm kind of the last check in that budget process. If there's some kind of a problem with a payment, I'm the one who's like the last line of defense to make sure that we're doing things in a compliant way. And I also do the reporting. So that's kind of the auditor's office.
And you and the treasurer and each commissioner are all voted on separately by the voters, the people. So
that's right. Yep.
You're not all one organization. The commissioners are together, but the treasurer and auditor are also sort of separate powers.
We are all elected independently of each other, and so I don't report to any of them. They don't report to they don't report to me. They don't report to the treasurer. Likewise. So yeah,
we're still on good communications among all of you.
Oh, it's absolutely needed. Yeah, it's necessary, and so that's what we try to do.